For centuries, Peru has been a land of gold, from the gilded temples of the Inca to the lust of Spanish conquistadors. But today, deep in the Amazon, a new gold rush is ravaging the Madre de Dios region. In this video, we explore Peru's modern gold boom and the heavy cost paid in return. In the late 2000s, a global frenzy for gold set the stage for an Amazonian bonanza. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, investors worldwide flocked to gold as a safe haven, driving prices to historic highs. Gold's value nearly doubled, peaking at over $1,900 an ounce by 2011, and it has surged again in recent years, approaching an astonishing $3,000 per ounce in 2024. This spike in price sparked a modern-day gold rush in Peru's remote southeast. At the same time, the completion of the Interoceanic Highway in 2010, a 2,600-kilometer road slicing through the Amazon, suddenly opened Madre de Dios, a once isolated rainforest frontier, to waves of fortune seekers. Thousands of people from Peru's impoverished highlands poured into the jungle, lured by the promise of instant wealth. 10 cities and ramshackle mining camps sprang up along riverbanks and freshly cut paths. Madre de Dios gained a wild reputation, the new Wild West of the Amazon, beyond the easy reach of law. Peru is among the world's top gold producers, and by the 2010s, much of that output was coming not from big corporate mines, but from these makeshift alluvial mines in the jungle. Virtually overnight, gold became the lifeblood of a vast informal economy. The scale of the boom was staggering. By 2011, Peru was exporting an estimated $3 billion worth of illegally mined gold, more than it earned from cocaine, despite being the world's top cocaine producer. Gold fever was so intense that in some areas, 97% of all gold production was illegal. Tens of thousands of transient miners, many with no permits or safety measures, scoured riverbeds and dug up soil in a frenzied quest for the precious metal. The jungles of Peru were in the grip of gold lust, and a new chapter of history was being written in dust and sweat. This all happens 500 years after conquistador Francisco Pizarro searched for El Dorado. A new gold rush had arrived, not led by armor-clad invaders, but by Peru's own citizens driven by poverty and the magnet of a soaring global gold price. It promised fortunes, but it would leave behind a trail of devastation. The environmental cost of Peru's gold boom is etched starkly on the landscape. The once pristine Amazon rainforest has been carved open by illegal mining, leaving gaping wounds visible from the air. Since 1985, miners in Madre de Dios have felled nearly 960 square kilometers of rainforest, and over two-thirds of that destruction occurred just in the boom years of 2009 to 2017. In satellite imagery, the region's once green expanses are now pockmarked with bald patches of muddy earth. These are the mining pits and trailings ponds, toxic mirror pools where lush jungle stood only a decade ago. The impact on people is severe. In mining zones, mercury has quietly infiltrated human communities via the fish they eat and the water they drink. Medical studies reveal a brewing health crisis. In one mining town, 94% of residents tested had mercury in their blood. Even remote indigenous communities, like the Harakbut people, have been found with mercury concentrations up to 6 times higher than acceptable levels. Mercury exposure can cause neurological damage, birth defects, and long-term illnesses. The environmental toll goes beyond pollution. Unregulated mining camps bring a host of social and public health problems as well. Tens of thousands of miners living in squalid shanty towns without clean water or sanitation have led to outbreaks of disease, from leishmaniasis, a flesh-eating parasite, to tuberculosis, making Madre de Dios the tuberculosis capital of Peru. In effect, the gold boom is tearing at the Amazon's fabric, not only erasing forests but poisoning waters. Long before the gold rush, the Amazon's indigenous peoples were the stewards of these forests. Groups like the Yine and Matsagenka have lived in Madre de Dios for generations, depending on clean rivers and intact forests for their culture and survival. Today they find themselves on the front lines of an environmental war. Illegal miners have not hesitated to invade indigenous territories in the pursuit of gold. Indigenous communities are fighting back, often at great personal risk. Some communities have set up guard posts on rivers to turn away barges loaded with mining equipment. They point out the cultural costs of the gold boom is immeasurable. Centuries-old ways of life are being upended. We're defending everyone's forest, as prosecutor-turned-activist Karina Gore puts it, channeling the spirit of the indigenous defenders. The story of Peru's gold boom doesn't end in the Amazon. In fact, much of the gold ripped from Madre de Dios has flowed into the international market, eventually finding its way into the products and investments of consumers worldwide. The supply chain of this so-called dirty gold is complex and often deliberately obscured. Smuggling is the linchpin. To launder illegal gold, traffickers frequently sneak it across borders to countries where it can be declared as legal origin. A significant portion of Peru's illicit gold is spirited into neighboring Bolivia or Brazil, and then exported under false paperwork. The United States is an endpoint, and in a notorious case, a U.S. precious metal firm based in Miami, run by a trio later nicknamed the Three Amigos, was found to be at the heart of a $3.6 billion money laundering scheme built on Peruvian gold. These gold traders from the company NTR Metals spent years buying huge amounts of gold from illegal mines, at times paying in duffel bags of cash, and then smuggled the gold through countries like Bolivia and Ecuador to mask its origin. The gold that leaves Peru does so at great cost to those left behind. Every link in the international supply chain, from the jungle miner to the local broker, to the exporter to the refiner, and to the local brand, shares responsibility for the hidden devastation in Madre de Dios. And ultimately, so do we. The consumers admiring our jewelry or upgrading our gadgets. The complicity is often invisible, masked by distance and complex trade networks. But understanding these connections is the first step toward change, toward ensuring that the brilliance of gold is not tarnished by the destruction of one of the world's most precious rainforests. Thanks for watching.